Imagine this. The people you love most, the ones you've supported through every storm, suddenly send you one short message. We think it's best if you step away. Just like that. No explanation, no gratitude, no second thought. But what happens? When the person they've been leaning on, the one holding their lives together in silence, finally lets go. This is not just a story about betrayal. This is about freedom, survival, and the moment you realize family can sometimes be your biggest chain. It started with a message. A group chat of all things. My parents, my aunt, even my uncle, though he barely ever wrote in there. But this time he didn't need to. His silence was loud enough. The message hit my phone at 7:38 p.m. on a Thursday night. I was in my apartment in Chicago, reheating leftover pasta, half thinking about finishing a report before bed. Then my phone buzzed. We've talked about it, and we think it's best if you step away from the family for a while. Natalie needs some space. We all do. Underneath, my aunt reacted with a thumbs up. Just like that. No call. No explanation. Just a little digital thumb telling me I was no longer welcome. I stared at the screen for a whole minute before typing back. Understood. I'll respect that. And I'll step away from the family fun too. I didn't wait for a reply. That night, I logged into the joint account I'd been running quietly for almost 5 years. The one that kept Mom's insulin paid for. The one that helped Dad refinance his second mortgage. The one that made sure Natalie's car kept running when her paychecks didn't come through. I removed my automatic deposits. Then I closed the account completely. At exactly 3:11 a.m., my phone started buzzing. It didn't stop. By sunrise, I had 89 missed calls. The last voicemail was from my dad. His voice was shaking, angry, desperate. What happened? The bank flagged everything. Are you okay? Why would you? I texted back one short sentence. I'm honoring your decision. That was before they realized everything else I had been holding together. To really understand why that text message felt like a knife in the back, we have to go back 5 years. Back to when Natalie was hospitalized for the second time. I remember it like it was yesterday. Dad called me late at night, crying in the parking lot of a CVS. She's not going to make it, sweetheart. They won't admit her without insurance. We don't have the money. That night I emptied my savings. Every last dollar I had. I paid for the rehab out of pocket. Natalie pulled through. She seemed stable for a while. Everyone called it a miracle. But what no one ever said, not even once, was that I made it possible. No one asked how I was doing. No one offered to pay me back. And it didn't stop there. When Mom was diagnosed with diabetes, I started paying for her medication. Dad's hours got cut at the shipping warehouse. Natalie was in and out of rehab, struggling. And every time she crashed, they came to me, quietly, desperately. First it was small. Can you cover $300 this month? Just this once. But once became every month. Then they asked if I could set something permanent up. A safety net. A family emergency pool. I was 27, single, working 70 to 80 hours a week in finance. I told myself it made sense. I could afford it. So I did it. I set up what we called the family fund. Everything went through me. Mom's prescriptions, Natalie's therapy copays, even the Wi-Fi bill when they fell behind. They gave me access to everything, bank logins, insurance papers, loan balances. Not because they trusted me, but because they didn't want to deal with it. They called me the responsible one. But what they really meant was the convenient one. My life slowly became a spreadsheet of quiet sacrifices. Meanwhile, Natalie spiraled. She got a DUI in 2020. I paid for the lawyer. She moved in with some guy named Eric, who everyone swore wasn't abusive. When she finally left him in the middle of the night, I was the one who sent her money for a hotel and groceries. I never saw a dime back. They never asked how I managed. They never noticed I downgraded my apartment, skipped vacations, and ate instant noodles for dinner more nights than I'll admit. I became the firewall between my family and collapse. And for a long time I told myself I was okay with that. But then came Christmas. 2 years ago, Natalie threw a fit because I said I couldn't buy her new tires. Not after I had just paid her rent. She stormed off, then told my parents I was making her feel judged. That night Dad sent me a message. Leah, just try to be more understanding. She's in recovery. You don't know how hard that is. Something inside me cracked that night. Not loudly, not publicly, but like thin ice splitting under pressure. From that moment, I started documenting everything. Every dollar sent, every bill paid, every excuse they made. I made backups, screenshots, statements, not to use against them, not yet, but to remind myself I wasn't imagining the drain, because deep down I knew the day would come when they would try to pretend it never happened. That day came sooner than I thought. Last month, Natalie texted in the group chat, "Hey, money's been tight, but can the fund cover a yoga retreat in Arizona? It's for my mental health." A yoga retreat, $3,200. I didn't reply. I wanted to see what the others would say. And my dad, the same man I'd pulled out of overdraft twice last year, wrote back, "Sounds like something you really need. Let's figure it out." Mom reacted with a heart emoji. That's when it hit me like a freight train. They didn't just use me. They expected to use me. The gratitude had long since evaporated. What was left was pure entitlement. And then came the final blow 2 nights before that exile message. We were on a family video call, a monthly check-in, which always turned into a therapy session for Natalie, with me as the invisible ATM in the background. That night I tried to share my news. I had been promoted to director at my firm, a massive step in my career. But before I could finish the sentence, Dad cut me off. "Sorry, can we circle back to Natalie's housing? She doesn't feel safe where she is. They wanted to move her into a better apartment with my help, of course." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I just said quietly, "Maybe it's time someone else stepped up." The silence that followed was ice cold. And 2 days later I got that group message. "We think it's best if you step away for now." With a thumbs up from Aunt Diane that cut deeper than words. What they didn't realize was that by trying to cut me off, they had just severed the cord to the only thing keeping their lives stitched together. When I finally stepped away, their world started crumbling faster than even I expected. It didn't take months. Didn't take weeks. It took 36 hours. The first crack came from the bank. Overdraft notices started piling in. Then Mom's pharmacy called me, not her, asking why her automatic payment for insulin had bounced. By Saturday afternoon, Natalie had left me a voicemail that started with a whisper and ended in a scream. "Why would you do this? You knew I needed that payment. You ruined everything." By Sunday morning, my phone was lighting up with message after message. Dad sent voice notes that sounded like a man unraveling in real time, one after another. "The mortgage bounced. I thought you handled the insurance. The car is uninsured now. What did you do to the utilities account? The bank locked our checking. They said there are red flags. Fix this, Leah. Fix this. Fix this." Like I had broken something. Like I hadn't simply stepped back, just like they asked me to. The real problem wasn't that I stopped helping. The problem was they had never realized how much I was holding together. Then came the family Zoom call. My cousin Emma set it up, pretending it was just to catch up. But the second I clicked join, I saw the truth. Their faces were lined up in neat little boxes like a jury. Mom's lips were pressed so tight they looked bloodless. Dad was pacing behind his chair. Natalie had tears streaking down her cheeks. And Aunt Diane sat there smug in her pearls, like we were in some kind of courtroom. It was a setup. "Why did you do this to us?" Natalie started, her voice trembling. "You just abandoned us. After everything I've done?" I asked. "You mean after I paid your rent, covered your rehab, and got mocked for saying no to your yoga retreat? That's not fair," she snapped. "Fair?" I laughed bitterly. "You want fair? How about this? For 5 years I've been your financial janitor, cleaning up your overdrafts, bailing you out, paying while you posted inspirational quotes about healing and alignment. And the moment I said no, you all exiled me from the family chat like I was disposable." Mom finally spoke. "It wasn't exile. We were giving you space to." "No," I cut in. "You weren't giving me space. You were siding with Natalie like you always do. You just found a polite way to tell me to disappear. So I did." Dad crossed his arms. "You didn't have to cancel the fund." "I didn't cancel it," I said flatly. "I closed it. In my name. Funded with my money. Managed by me. That family fund wasn't a trust. It was a leash." His face turned red. "We trusted you." "No," I said calmly. "You used me. I had come prepared." I opened the folder on my desk, clicked share screen, and just like that, the spreadsheet appeared. Rows and rows of payments, dates, amounts, every dollar tracked. Rent, medical bills, utilities, car repairs, Natalie's retreat that I almost paid, the overdrafts I fixed, the emergency dental for Aunt Diane, even the Uber receipts from the time I paid for Mom to get to the ER at 2 a.m. Wow, Emma whispered. Who even keeps all this? Aunt Diane sneered. Someone who wants to throw it back in our faces. I didn't answer. I just clicked to the final tab. At the bottom, a single total glowed on the screen. $87,000. Dead silence. Dad stepped back from the camera like he'd been slapped. You've been keeping tabs on us? Mom asked, horrified. No, I said, my voice steady. I've been surviving you. Natalie lunged forward, face twisted with rage. You're just bitter. You've always been bitter because nobody gave you a gold star for being the good daughter. You want applause for acting like an adult. No, I replied, calm as stone. I just want boundaries. And I'm done being your safety net. That's rich, Aunt Diane muttered. You think money is the only thing that matters? No, I said, leaning closer. But it was the only thing you ever came to me for. Then I delivered the final blow. I closed the spreadsheet, looked straight into the camera and said, I've already contacted the bank. All joint authorizations are removed. My name is no longer on anything tied to your accounts. Credit cards closed. Shared utility autopays canceled. Insurance premiums, you'll need to re-enroll yourselves. You wanted me to step away? This is what that looks like. Mom gasped. Dad's face went pale. Natalie looked like she'd been shot. Emma leaned back wide-eyed. But I wasn't done. I also spoke to a lawyer, I added. You'll be receiving documents this week. I'm dissolving any legal ties between me and that so-called family trust, just in case someone tries to dip into my credit again or open something in my name. You're overreacting, Natalie shrieked. You're cutting us off. I'm protecting myself, I replied. From now on, I'm not your backup plan, not your bailout, not your free ride. Dad looked broken but said nothing. Mom was crying quietly now. Natalie slammed something in the background and stormed away. Aunt Diane reached forward and ended the call without a word. And me? I sat back in my chair, heart pounding, hands trembling. But for the first time in a decade, I wasn't afraid of the fallout. Because there was nothing left for me to lose, except the crushing weight I had carried for too long. The silence afterward was almost eerie. For the first time in years, my phone didn't buzz with, "Hey, quick favor. Can you just cover this one thing?" Or those guilt-laced emojis from Mom. Nothing. It was like I had disappeared. First I thought maybe, just maybe, they finally understood. That they were learning to stand on their own. But I should have known better. Exactly 10 days later, an email arrived. From an unrecognizable address. A burner, clearly. The subject line, "You ruined everything." Inside was a single sentence. And a stack of attachments. Screenshots of overdue bills. Natalie's eviction notice. A final warning from the power company. A denied credit card application, with my name listed as the former co-signer. They were unraveling. And the thing about people who lean on you for years, they don't fall gracefully. They crash and then they blame you for the landing. That same week, Mom showed up at my office. My assistant came in wide-eyed. "There's a woman in the lobby, says she's your mother. She won't leave." I stepped out and there she was. Pale, shaking, clutching an envelope full of papers. "I didn't know where else to go," she whispered. "Your dad's sleeping on the couch. Natalie hasn't left her room in 3 days. The landlord's changing the locks. Please." I didn't answer. So she pulled her last card. Her voice turned sharp, almost cruel. "I raised you. I gave you life. And this is how you repay me." I laughed. Not loud, not mocking. Just hollow. "You gave me life," I said. "And then you spent 30 years trying to convince me I owed you for it." She flinched. I stepped closer. "I never asked for this. I didn't come to you at 22 and beg. Please let me be responsible for your chaos. Let me carry your debt. Let me save Natalie over and over while you enable her. You put this on me." She said nothing. "You want help." I finished. "Call a social worker. Call a credit counselor. Call the same system you always said we were too proud to rely on. I'm not your bailout anymore." Then I turned and walked back into my office. I didn't even check if she followed. But that wasn't the end. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. From the bank. The envelope was thick, the kind of thick that means trouble. Inside. An investigation summary. Apparently, someone had tried to open a business loan in my name, using my social security number, and the tax ID tied to the family fund. The only reason it didn't go through? I had closed the fund days earlier. It triggered a fraud alert. The loan amount? $80,000. The business name? Natalie Hope Recovery Services, LLC. The moment I saw that loan application, I felt the floor drop out from under me. It wasn't just desperation anymore. It wasn't just begging for help. This was theft. Fraud. Deliberate. Calculated. And the signature at the bottom? A shaky scrawl that was supposed to be mine. I knew instantly who had done it. Not because I wanted to assume the worst, but because only one person in the family had both the nerve and the history. Natalie. The next morning, I sat in the bank manager's office, the document spread out between us. He tapped the forged signature with his pen. Is this yours? No, I said flatly. You're sure? I looked him straight in the eye. If that's my handwriting, then I'm the Queen of England. He nodded slowly, like he'd already suspected as much. We flagged it because the account it tied to had just been closed. If you hadn't cut ties, this might have gone through without a hitch. The words lodged in my chest. I had come within inches of being shackled to an $80,000 loan I never asked for. And for what? So Natalie could start some half-baked recovery center? So she could slap her name on a company while I carried the debt? The manager slid a form across the desk. If you want us to escalate this to fraud investigation, we'll need a written statement. And a police report. A police report. Against my own sister. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying every past favor, every guilt trip, every manipulative smile. How many times had they already used my name without telling me? How much of my credit history wasn't really mine at all? And then I thought about Dad's voicemail. The way he said, "We trusted you." No, they didn't trust me. They depended on me, like parasites depend on a host. I woke up the next morning with my decision made. I was filing the report. The police station was quieter than I expected. A tired officer behind the desk raised an eyebrow when I explained. Family forgery, I said, sliding the paperwork over. They tried to open a business loan in my name. That's not my signature. He looked it over, whistled low. 80 grand? That's not small potatoes. No, it's not. Who's the suspect? I swallowed hard. My sister. He glanced up, searching my face. You sure about that? As sure as anyone can be, I said. She's done smaller versions of this for years. This time she just got bolder. The officer nodded, started typing. Okay, we'll open a case file. Bank fraud. Identity theft. You'll probably need to testify if this goes forward. My stomach twisted. Testify. Against Natalie. Against my parents' golden child. But then I pictured that forged signature again. And I didn't hesitate. Do whatever you need to do. 3 days later, the storm hit. My phone rang at 6:12 a.m. Dad. I almost didn't pick up. But something in me wanted to hear it, wanted to know what cards they were playing now. The moment I answered, his voice exploded through the speaker. What have you done? I stayed quiet. You filed a police report against your own sister, he shouted. You want to see her in prison? You want to destroy this family. She forged my name, I said coldly. She tried to stick me with $80,000 of debt. That's not a mistake. That's a crime. You're supposed to protect family, he barked. Not betray them. I almost laughed. Protect family? Wasn't that exactly what I had been doing for years? Dad, I said softly, family doesn't try to ruin your life when you stop paying their bills. That's not love. That's exploitation. You think you're so perfect, he spat. You think money makes you better than the rest of us. No, I said, my voice steady. I think choices do. And you all made yours. Then I hung up. By the end of that week, the fallout was everywhere. Mom left a voicemail, crying so hard she could barely form words. Natalie sent a string of texts alternating between rage and pleading. Aunt Diane fired off an email with the subject line, "You'll regret this." But the one that froze my blood? An anonymous envelope slid under my apartment door. No return address. Inside was a single photo, a picture of me leaving the police station. Zoomed in, grainy, but unmistakable. On the back, scrawled in thick black ink, "Blood is blood, and blood doesn't forget." That was when I realized this wasn't just financial anymore. This was war. And my family, my own blood, was willing to turn me into the enemy. I doubled my locks that night. I installed cameras the next morning, and I met with the detective assigned to my case. He flipped through the bank papers, the forged application, the anonymous photo. "Looks like whoever did this is escalating," he said grimly. "We'll get a handwriting analyst on that signature, and I'll request surveillance footage from the bank." Then he looked at me carefully. "You need to understand, if this goes to court, it's going to tear your family apart." I nodded. "It already has." A week later I got the call. "Miss Grant," the detective said, "we matched the handwriting on the loan documents. It's not a perfect science, but combined with the IP address used for the online application, it's strong enough." "Whose?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Your sister's." I closed my eyes. "Natalie." "Of course." The detective's voice softened. "We're preparing a warrant. But before we move forward, I need to ask you one more time. Do you want to press charges?" I sat there in silence, staring at the wall. If I said yes, my sister could be arrested. If I said no, she'd walk free and probably try again. Either way, the version of family I grew up believing in was already dead. Finally, I opened my eyes. "Yes," I said. "Press the charges." The night before they picked her up, Natalie called me from an unknown number. Her voice was raw, jagged, almost unrecognizable. "You really did it," she whispered. "You really want me locked up." "I didn't do this," I said quietly. "You did. With every lie, every forgery, every time you thought my life was just collateral damage for your chaos." There was a pause. Then she laughed. Not a happy laugh, an empty one. "You think you're safe now?" she hissed. "You think you cut us off? You don't cut blood off, Leah. You don't walk away from us. We'll never let you." Then the line went dead. The next morning, she was in handcuffs. But even as I watched the detective lead her into the courthouse, even as the case file thickened with evidence, one thought kept hammering in my head. Natalie wasn't lying. She wasn't bluffing. Because the thing about family is, even when you walk away, they find ways to follow you. And sometimes the scariest betrayals aren't the ones you can see on paper. They're the ones that come after, in the shadows, when the legal system thinks it's over. The trial moved fast. Faster than I expected. Natalie pled not guilty, of course. She blamed paperwork mix-ups, tried to say the bank had confused our names. But the evidence stacked higher than her excuses. IP logs from her laptop, handwriting analysis, and even surveillance footage of her walking into the branch. When the verdict came, guilty on multiple counts of fraud, I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt hollow. Because sitting in that courtroom, I didn't just watch my sister fall. I watched my parents collapse beside her, whispering to each other, glaring at me like I was the executioner. When the judge read the sentence, 2 years in state prison, Mom let out a sob that echoed through the chamber. Dad didn't move, didn't breathe. He just turned his head toward me, his eyes cold, and mouthed one word: "Traitor." Afterward, I walked out alone. No family waiting. No congratulations from anyone. Just silence. I should have been celebrating my freedom from debt, from manipulation, from years of being their safety net. But freedom has a strange taste when it comes laced with ashes. The following weeks were worse. Anonymous numbers filled my voicemail with threats. "We don't forget. Blood is blood." My tires were slashed twice. A rock went through my kitchen window with a note tied to it. "You chose the wrong side." I reported everything. The detective took notes, filed reports, promised patrols. But we both knew it. This wasn't crime you could police. This was family vengeance. Slow, patient, personal. Months passed. I rebuilt, changed my number, moved apartments, tried to build walls between myself and the ghosts that shared my last name. And for a while I believed it was over. Until one night I came home late, unlocked my new door and froze. On the kitchen table sat a box. No return address. No markings. Inside was a single Polaroid. A picture of me asleep in my own bed. On the back, in that same jagged handwriting, was a message. Family doesn't forget. Family doesn't forgive. That was the moment I truly understood. You can walk away from family. You can file reports, press charges, even watch them get sentenced. But blood, the wrong kind of blood, follows you. It stains everything. And no matter how far you run, it always finds its way back. The story wasn't over. Never would be. Because betrayal doesn't end in courtrooms. It ends in shadows. And my family, they were still out there, waiting.